the haters of the world came out of their closet and like sent us all these statements saying it's never going to work and what are you thinking, it didn't work, blah blah blah, and everybody was convinced it was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
But then the album came out and it all changed dramatically.
Yeah. Well, Wolf, thank you so much for your time today. I mean, the album release is coming very close, so I know that you have a hectic schedule right now. I appreciate you taking some time to answer these questions. How are you doing right now?
I'm doing fabulous. Very, very busy. Super busy. I mean, the days go by like that, and I don't know how to fit everything into the schedule. It's you. First of all, we have an album release, so there's that, and then we're going on tour to South America.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime we go on tour, there's always this sort of deadline. What you don't get done before we leave, it doesn't get done. So there's always rehearsals, interviews, last minute errands, and all kinds of decisions to make, phone calls, emails. It's a lot.
On the flights themselves, you're just like still nonstop working as well and thinking about new riffs and stuff like that, or do you at these
on
points
the flight? You mean
give yourself a break?
What?
Yeah, on the flight.
On the flight, well, luckily there's usually, sometimes there's Wi-Fi connection, so I keep working then.
Exactly.
But I never work on music on the plane. No, that would be too much.
Yeah,
Actually, I tell you a secret, I never really work on music while we're on the road much.
Okay.
So almost when as soon as the tour starts, it's almost like a more peaceful time for me than when I'm at home or in the studio.
Yeah.
Because my sole job then is to, get ready for the show, and there's not a whole lot you can do in hotel rooms other than maybe go to the gym and do a little bit of practicing or do a few emails. But usually it's a peaceful time during touring.
Yeah. All right. Well, so we'll try to leave you alone when you're touring. Yeah. And now we obviously want to focus, most of the time in this conversation on the new album coming out and everything that's coming our way. At the same time, this is the 17th album. It's 50 fucking years of Accept. A milestone that very few bands achieve. I mean, you've never stopped looking forward. You've been creating and writing new material. But is there, in those times that you do take a step back from the creative process and you're on that flight or you're on that bus, going from a show and back, are there times that you allow yourself to take that step back and look back and appreciate that legacy?
Not so often, or hardly ever. I mean, it never really comes up to me in my mind. I never really sit in my hotel room or on bus bunk and think like, "Oh my God, legacy, amazing career." No, I'm usually more focused on what's going on every day, and I'm super busy. And I never really, honestly, enjoy even looking back at what was and what could have been and why. It's only during interviews that I'm sort of pushed into that kind of mind frame, if you know what I mean. When people ask me what exactly happened back then with Restless and Wild and why, and then I'm thinking, okay. But other than that, I never really think about the past.
All right, let's forget about the past. Let's just focus.
Oh, it's fine. I don't.
Solely on the future and the present and the present and the present. Let's look at this album. Like, it's kicking off with Diving Into Sin, the first song. I obviously had a chance to listen to the full album, and there's a menacing vibe to this song, and we find it back into the album a little bit more. It's setting the stage for something slightly different. Like, this album has a sound that is recognizable, I find, like as an album itself. Like, I think that in 10 years from now, when we hear some of these songs, it'll be like, oh yeah, that was a Humanoid song, because there's that specific sound to it.
Okay.
Do you see that in any way at all? That there's like this little bit more of a, I feel, like there's a dangerous vibe to this album that is a little bit more pronounced.
Well, that's a good thing, isn't it? I mean,
For a metal band, yeah.
It's so hard for me to say these things because, I mean, to me, they're just a bunch of new songs that we created, but I have no really objectivity or no perception of how it falls in comparison with other albums. So it's just just the latest stuff we came up with, but what kind of flavor it has or whether it's more this or more, it's really hard for me to say because I don't really ever listen to the old albums like you do or like other people do, or like even the current album. I can't listen to it the way you do because it's so close to me. You know, I see all these little imperfections. I hear all these things, or my mind is immediately work mode. I can't really consume it like you do.
Yeah. But you say very interestingly, this is the last collection of songs we've created. Does that mean that for you, an album is first and foremost a collection of songs, and the focus is on the songs individually? You're not trying to write one body of work, if you will?
No, never. I don't think I even could if I wanted to, because I mean that would be a completely different mind frame.
Yeah.
So I'm basically just focused on one song at a time, and when that's done, we'll go to the next, and then after a while you have 10 or 12 together, and then you think like, yeah, I guess that's an album. But how that turns out to be is really almost happens by coincidence or by chance. Even when we record this stuff, we don't really ever think of a body of work. We just sort of go from song to song and make it the best we can. And you know, of course, obviously, we try to avoid to have similar songs, or I mean, you keep it a little bit in mind, but it's never like we never really set out to have a concept, we never have a band meeting beforehand or with Andy or anybody. Okay, this next album is supposed to be this or supposed to be that.
Yeah.
It just is basically a statement of where we are in this time, and this is what we came up with.
That also means then, if we just kind of follow that train of thought, that every song is important. Every song you have a personal connection with. You said you're very close to it. With a band like Accept that has 17 albums, you know that when you then release a bunch of new songs, that individually all these songs are important to you. Some of these songs are written, recorded, and they will never, ever, ever be played again, or at least not live on a stage. Is that then really hard for you? Because I'm thinking of this new album, like some of my favorite songs so far, I need to listen to it more, obviously, but Unbreakable, I think, is really cool. South Side of Hell is probably my favorite song on the album. These have not been released as singles. With the hundreds of songs that you've written over the years, it's unlikely that I will see those songs ever played on a stage. So how is that for you as an artist, being so close with these songs, but then going like, well, and that was that. On to the next.
Well, I have to correct you. I think most of these songs might be played live at one point or another.
Okay.
It's just, because we at least gonna give them a good try during rehearsals. I mean, that's what we usually do, and then we'll see how it feels in comparison to the stuff to the rest of the songs we're gonna play, and then we'll see how it falls. And sometimes it is okay. We don't really need another fast song, so we can't really play it this time around, but we might swap it on another show. When you set together a live set list, you have to sort of keep the overall it's different from making an album. There you really have to sort of keep the show, and you have to in mind, and you have to sort of create a set list that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and you think about the whole a lot, and you think like, where's the energy at this point in the set, and how does that work all together? So, but yeah, you're right. I mean, sometimes there is songs we've never really played live, and that's a shame. But hey, so that's a luxury problem to have, I think.
I think it was Lemmy who said that he was like, there are times and years that I'm sick and tired of Ace of Spades, but every show there's at least that one fan that drove, hours and hours to come to their very first Motorhead show, and it would be unfair to them to not give them that moment. Do you feel similar with some of the ultra classics?
I never feel that way. No, I mean I've heard that statement quite a lot from Lemmy, and that's his thing. But I never get tired of playing Princess of the Dawn, which I've probably played a few thousand times. I mean, I get tired of playing it during rehearsals because it's so. I mean, there's really not that much. I could play it, you know, upside
Sleeping.
down, underwater, suspended. I don't know.
Hey, that would be a great live show. Come on.
But yeah, but on stage, these are sort of the golden songs we have, man. This is like the best moments in the show sometimes, when everybody, you know, reacts to it and they all sing along, and then I'm eternally grateful for those songs. So I never get tired of them.
Yeah,
I mean, these are like.
All right. One of those other ultra classics that is a tie to the new album with the humanoid. Well, not theme of the title song, not the whole song, not the whole album. It's not a concept album. Is obviously Metal Heart.
Right.
Now, in that song, that song obviously is famous for you're a big fan of classical music. You've done classical albums as well, and you've massaged some well-known melodies, the Slavonic March and
I like that term. I'm going to use that from now on. I massaged.
There you go. You massaged it in there, and that's it. Very recognizable. Everybody knows that those melodies, whether or not they actually know them, but it creates an instant recognizability. And that's done in other songs as well, except that has been copied by many bands. Sabaton has done this many times as well now. Is there, over the years, have you massaged in outside influences that people never picked up on?
No, never have. Never have even on purpose or consciously tried to bring any other music elements in, to be honest. No, never have. Awesome. I mean, it's only ever been classical stuff that I thought like, oh, it'd be cool to sneak that into a song here and there. And even on the new one, in Diving Into Sin, there's a little bit of Mozart in there under the chorus, under the solo. But I've always been quite mindful to not overdo it, because I mean, accept is accept, and I don't really want to contaminate it with too much classical music, if you know what I mean. It's okay when it sort of calls for it and it really works well, then yes. But I'm not trying to hammer it in there for just to satisfy myself or whatever. It's just that's what solo records are for, and that's when you can do that other places. But if it works fine, then yeah, absolutely. And I usually manage to sneak in one or two little elements here and there.
Easter eggs for all the fans to go look for.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you wonder how many Accept fans at one point hear these original classical pieces and like they're just like, their mind is blown, like, oh my god. Now, you mentioned Andy very briefly before, a few minutes ago, and I just want to pause on him for a second, because I mean, Accept today seems to be rolling as a machine like never before. There is this rejuvenation with not only Accept but classic metal in general. Saxon is doing really great with the help of Andy. Judas Priest is doing really great with the help of Andy. How big of an impact has Andy made in this rejuvenation, if you will, of some legendary bands that seem to be back at the height of their game?
Huge influence. You mean, I think there was an article in, what was it, the Wall Street Journal, I believe, or someplace like an Unlikely, where they called him the man who brought back metal or something like that. That was to the point. I mean, he's really, I can't give him enough credit. Yeah, I mean, he's really been very instrumental in this whole rebirth of Accept. Without him, we might have failed miserably. We still would have tried. If he would have not been there during the recording of Blood of the Nations and somebody else would have produced it, who knows how it would have turned out. But I'm sure it wouldn't have turned out exactly like this.
Right.
He was definitely there right from the get-go, and he actually made us listen to it was interesting. We played him when we first met in, I think it was 2009, we had a bunch of half-finished songs and some demos, and they were kind of this way and that way, and a little bit all over the place, because we thought, okay, we got a new singer and we could do just about anything because he can sing anything and he's amazing. So should we try this? Should we try that? Should we go that direction? And we played him all that stuff, and he basically said, no, guys, let's have a listen. Let's put on the old records. Let's listen to Restless and Wild together, and I'll tell you what I like about the old stuff. And we were quite surprised. There were some bits and pieces in there where we thought, well, really, that was a mistake, dude. That wasn't really meant to be that way. But it turned out, and that's just the best part. You know, he was all excited about certain song elements that we never really thought much of.
Yeah.
And he wanted us to sound more German, which surprised me a lot, because I didn't even know there's such a thing as sounding German. Because to me, since I am German,
it's just normal.
To me, it's just normal, you know. Yeah. But I don't know, he made it all. Anyhow, long story short, he was very helpful in guiding us into writing the right songs.
With Blood of Nations coming out to such acclaim, and then basically every album that came out after that being very positively, you know, received. For someone like yourself, you say that, yeah, I know, I've got my vision, I you know, I'm on my journey, and I'm looking straight ahead. But are those moments also like big moments? Because, you know, with a band like Accept and the whole, like you said, the whole journey without Andy could have gone very differently. Those are risks you take personally. Absolutely. And as a business person.
It was a huge risk, but it wasn't a risk because we had no other choice. It was either that or nothing, honestly. Yeah. So at that point you go like, well, what do we have to lose? You know, we don't have, without Mark, we don't have Accept. And with Mark, we have a chance to go someplace, and we feel really good about it. And we felt like, if this doesn't work, we might as well give it up altogether, because it felt so right to us, you know. And we felt like we would be stupid not to do it, even though we are fully aware that half the world might just hate it. And when we announced that we would come back with a new singer, you know, there was this huge backlash online. Yeah. You know, all the haters of the world came out of their closet and like sent us all these statements saying it's never going to work, and what are you thinking, it didn't work, blah blah blah. And everybody was convinced it was a huge mistake. Yeah. But then the album came out and it all changed dramatically.
Yeah.
And that pissed us off a little bit. I mean, I think it actually made us write better songs, because we were fully aware it was like us against the world, and that is usually the best glue that holds a band together. It kind of reminded me of the early days of Accept, when we were like just teenagers in Germany, and metal was like really not as popular as it is now. Right. Or we also had this sort of us against the world, you know, we're going to show you kind of attitude.
Yeah.
You know?
So a question that I have for you, because you say like, oh, you know, if it doesn't work out, we might as well just quit. But is that something that is even possible for you? Like, because I know that you also like mentioned other interviews and what have you, with people asking you about, Humanoid and the AI theme. And you shared like, well, AI is now becoming a creative thing, and that there's not going to be a need or a demand for artists anymore. But even if that was the case, like, I have a hard time believing that in whatever world, Wolf Hoffmann would not pick up a guitar and play some music.
I think you're mistaken there, because there was a time when I didn't touch the guitars for years, and I was actually okay. I mean, I wasn't as happy as I am now. I tell you that. I became a professional photographer for many years, and I did photography, and I was really obsessed with it. I really enjoyed it. I was quite successful. I made a great living at it, of course, but yeah, there was something missing. And when I had that chance to go back on stage and make new albums, I was all fired up, and I, just dropped the guitar, the camera for the guitar in a minute. But I think if I wouldn't have the chance to do music the way that I would want to, I wouldn't do it. I mean, I have somewhat of a high standard for myself.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't play in a wedding band, or I would never play. I mean, I'm not knocking it. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. But for me, music was always a very valuable and almost sacred thing, and I would only want to do it if I can do it the way I'd want to. I wouldn't want to really compromise too much and say, it's just a job, and who cares? And that would be hard for me to do, if you know what I mean.
But is it regardless?
I'd rather do something else completely different, and I'm, yeah. So
whether it's a guitar or like, regardless of if it's a guitar or a camera, it still sounds like you're just somebody that has that creative fire that needs to do something. And if one isn't working for you, another creative outlet has to be there.
Well, some people call me a perfectionist, and I don't like that term because I don't know, nothing is ever perfect, and I'm not even going for that. But
that's spoken as a true perfectionist.
I can get quite obsessed about things, and I'm really detailed, and I can be a pain in the ass in that regard.
Like, for example, when there's a break in a song and the other band members don't turn off their guitars, like you recently shared.
Oh yeah, you've heard that, yeah.
Yeah.
Things like that really get me going. That's it, because it's so easy. These little nuances to me make all the difference, you know.
Yeah. Do you find you sometimes you have to play the quote unquote dad of the group more than you sometimes like?
I don't know, dad, but I'm certainly playing a role like I'm I don't know what you want to call it, but I'm definitely the one who reminds. Let's say it this way: I'd like to remind people of certain things on occasion, all the time.
Now, before we started recording, we were just joking a little bit about your last show in Toronto, and to wrap us up, because there's going to be a lot of live shows, and we won't have the time to go into details for everything that's going to come, and we're keeping our fingers and crossed and eyes open for more North American shows to be announced. But your last show in Toronto, unfortunately, Mark, his voice completely gave up and he couldn't perform that night. But the band did. Right. And I know that you play, I think you sang some of the songs and you let the audience sing a lot of the songs. Is there, after these things have happened, is there now a plan B? Like, are you making other people take vocal lessons that if something like that happens, that, amongst the band, everything can be covered?
No, man. I have to tell you, this was one of a million, because Mark, luckily, never has much vocal trouble, or he hardly ever even gets sick. On the road, you have to understand, we're all on a tour bus together, and if one person has a flu, or like any cold, we all get it. Sooner or later, somebody, and it's okay if I have I can be on stage with and I have been on stage feeling as sick as a dog. I can still play. I still get out there, even if I have a fever, even if I feel whatever. But for a vocalist, when he gets infected, and I think it was a viral thing that he got. Yeah, at some point you got to do damage control and say, okay, I can't do it tonight. And luckily, this in one out of the hundreds and maybe thousands of shows we've done with him, this is the first where we really had to. It happened so shortly before the show that we really said, geez, we're here now. We basically went out on stage and told the guys, told the audience, listen guys, we've got a man down tonight. We can all we all go home and wait for another occasion, which might be in a year or two or whenever, or we can just try to have fun and just perform something for you tonight. And that's what we did. Luckily I didn't sing because I'm not I can do some background shouting, but that's about it. But Martin sang and Christopher sang, and I don't know, they tried hard, but it was a bit of fun. It was it was entertaining to say the least. It was great, but I think the audience had a ball because it was one of those shows that they'll never get to see again.
For sure.
Definitely. For sure. And I thought it was, the fans appreciated it. It was better than just saying, okay guys, we got to keep your tickets, we're going to see you in whenever.
No, for sure. And I remember how fast it went, because I met you and the band hours before the show in the hotel, and everything seemed to be fine at that point still. But,
yeah, it seemed to be fine. It was just literally like an hour or two before the show that we made that decision.
Yeah. Well, I hope that big problems like that are spared from you as you're about to head, to South America and do all these crazy shows. And even if it does happen, then I hope that the people that are at that show will have an experience of a lifetime, and maybe Martin will be a little bit more clean on his vocals next time. But we'll give him shit for that. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I very, very much appreciate it. I cannot wait to see you on a stage again, and I'm very excited about this album coming out. And I'll keep my fingers crossed to hear South Side of Hell.
South Side of excellent.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know that you've got a hectic schedule, and we'll stay tuned to see those announcements coming our way. And then in just a few weeks from now, we'll have the album. Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
You are awesome for watching this video. Click right here to see more content like it and subscribe to the channel.